get to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I'm going to bring him up here in a second, but I do just got to drop in a little announcements here, because my team reminds me all the time that I have to start saying what I say at the end of the show, at the beginning of the show as well. So if you guys get value in what you're here today and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling really ambitious after this one, which you should be, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify as well, because if you saw value, that's how your network's going to see value as well. All right, you guys, let's dive right in here. When it comes down to it, there's a ton of technology and resources that are out there to help you run a more efficient business out there, and especially on the fleet side of things. And with AI and safety being, coming up left and right there, you guys, I figured we might as well talk about it on this show. So I have Mr. Rudy Nemeth on the show. He's the VP of Sales over at Velociter. So Rudy, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me, man. How are you?
No, dude, I'm doing well, and I appreciate you taking the time here. And it's one of those things where because like my dad was a driver, Rudy, and he drove back in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and like what is out there today, I think literally would just drive him absolutely crazy. Just because, like, dude, like he would just run on paper log books, and he may or may not have had a few of them in the cab of his truck at that time, and the industry was different. But I think what I love the most about what is available out there in today's market is it can help a lot of the fleets run a way more efficient operation. And we're going to get into a lot of that stuff here. But Rudy, what brought you into Velociter? How'd you get your start there?
So I joined the company in the year 2004. So I've been doing this a long time. And at the time, Velociter was really focusing on mobile technology and, really taking that piece of being a driver. When you're on paper, you have your invoice, you have all the things you got to do, and making it electronic. I was super excited about that technology. I thought it had a big future, and, we've been at it ever since, growing, working with clients and essentially making something way easier for them that used to be difficult. Right. Mm-hmm. So, it's just been a great journey.
So how are you guys like redefining everything that's going on right now, and from like fleet performance and everything? Because like obviously AI is all over everything in every industry out there. So how are you guys really leveraging that technology and bringing it out to your guys as users?
No doubt. Well, I mean, we're doing it in multiple different ways. I think if you look at how the company started, at that time we were really just going, like I mentioned, we were going after companies that had an invoice, a piece of paper, a pen, one of those big clipboards, and all that kind of stuff, and essentially just giving them a mobile computer, right? But the challenge is often at that time, drivers really were scared of technology. They really didn't want to go in there and learn how to do something new. So what we did different is we made it way, way easier, right? So we took all the things they do and we really just kind of mimicked how they follow the process and made it very, very easy. Right. And over the years, we started adding all sorts of technology, like video technology, tracking of telematics, and all that kind of stuff, and then now we put it all under one platform. So where AI comes into place is, you have these cameras that go into a vehicle. Well, at the end of the day, it just ends up being a bunch of footage. Right. Mm-hmm. So the AI looks for things. It looks for drivers on the road that, maybe cutting you off, you're following them too closely. It looks for the driver safety. Are they on the phone? Are they following proper safety procedures? Right. And, all that machine vision around that makes it way easier for the dispatcher to see what's going on, how they're doing things, how they run their freight. But what makes us a little bit different, we also merge the business data into it. So now you have that paperless invoice. You have the ability to have your bill of lading electronically. Down the road, where AI is really coming into play for us and many others we work with is you got a lot of data, right? That creates a lot of information. It's going to make it way easier to find it. It's going to make it way easier to say, show me this driver, show me how safe they are, show me, all the things they have to do, routing. Are you at the right place? Are you going to be where are you going to be in an hour? How can you get there easily, right? So it just makes it way, way easier to run an operation for the driver to get to where they're going and also make sure that they're safe about it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I don't know if enough companies actually leverage their data or understand how much data they truly have and how they can roll that out and apply it to make better business decisions out there. Right. Because again, I'm very much from the old school thought in freight, but I'm like, we got to leverage all of this stuff to our benefit here. And now it's like, with the resources that are at your disposal, I mean, just with a lot of the tools, man, it doesn't necessarily cost as much as you think. And again, you need to leverage this stuff because again, I look at it, especially like, again, I don't own trucks, but I work with a ton of trucking companies every single day inside of my brokerage here. And, we always we try and take that proactive approach where we want to reload the same carriers time and time again. We do not want to go out and try and find new capacity, especially when we have proven carriers that have done a phenomenal job for our customers out there. But again, it's like, that's all data points. Are the lanes that you're running right now the most profitable ones for you? Is there anything that you can see? Again, I'm not about like putting in a mandate about like governing trucks for a certain speed or anything like that. But again, if you're looking at engine efficiencies and fuel burn efficiencies and everything out there, what does it cost if your drivers are running at 70 as opposed to 65 miles an hour? What does that do for your fuel burn, which is one of the largest expenses for a trucking company out there? And again, it's like taking all of this information and then compiling it into a seamless, easy to read report to help you make a better decision out there. I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And I truly feel like this is that next golden era, you can call it, that's going to truly level the playing field to where a smaller fleet or a smaller brokerage can pack a larger punch out there in the market due to leveraging the right technology.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you hit a lot of good points, Chris. I mean, the big thing that becomes challenging for companies is this technology tends to look very expensive and be very expensive for people to implement and put together. The other challenge is that you will have 3 or 4 different solutions giving you this information. So if you're operating trucks or, if you're in freight brokerage and whatever else you're doing, you have to go to this system to look at one thing and another system look at the other. And that's one of the challenges that we address here is we need to put all this info, right, and make it available behind one pane of glass, which we do with our solutions, right? But then the other important part is we need to make it available to the appropriate parties to where they can log in and they can exchange that info easily, right? And, technically that's not really difficult. Administratively, it tends to be a challenge sometimes. And that's something that we do every single day to make it easier for these guys. The point you mentioned that a lot of data is created becomes a thing, right? Because you have everything from info from your camera, info from your engine, your business process, right? You have your inspections, you have your compliance documentation, you have the actual business of what you're delivering. The AI piece of making it searchable and making it easy for people to see and implement is where the key is and where the future is going to be for the players that get into this very, very quickly.
No, I'm right there with you, man. I think the big, and again, speaking of data, you need a lot of data to do this, but I truly feel like predictive analytics is the future, right? Like when it comes down to maintenance, preventative maintenance, and then keeping your fleet and your equipment running out there, I think that's the biggest thing. So it's like, how does that influence maybe where things are trending out there in, like from a preventative maintenance or a maintenance schedule out there?
Well, what happens with that is you have to feed it the right info, and some of it may seem very basic, but you have to have your truck numbers together, the mileage together, right, to make sure that you know what miles are on the vehicle. And a lot of that is electronic, right? And from there, AI engines can go in and say that, look, at 5,000 miles on this particular make and model, we need to look at this. We need to address this, right? Your tire burn, how quickly you're burning tires, your tire type, all the little things that go into running an operation, a vehicle, in a vehicle. You start putting all that together, and the systems can tell you, okay, you need to address these 5 items when the trucks get to this mileage, this age, and so on. You start putting all that together, well, you can get ahead of things. You can get ahead of breakdowns. You can make sure that your fleet is operating at as high of a percent as you can, right?
Yeah.
That you can avoid breakdowns and essentially not running your truck. And that costs you money.
No, and that's exactly it, right? I mean, cash flow is obviously it's king in any business, but it's, most small businesses at the end of the day. I mean, I probably say this. I've been saying this a lot more lately than I have in the past, man. Is like most small businesses are 30 days away from going out of business every single month, right? Because of cash flow constraints and everything else. So it's like you have to look at that cost benefit analysis here of it, right? Like with predatory towing being a whole other subject that we could probably talk for at least an hour about right now is what you got to look at it. It's going to cost you one way or another here. If you are not monitoring the vehicle, your truck's performance out there when it comes to tires, brakes, just the simple maintenance that comes along with it, it does lead to that big breakdown. And then again, you got to ask yourself, do you have 15 grand to get it towed? I mean, again, I'm just throwing a number out there, but I've seen some pretty ridiculous tow bills. And then on top of it, does the shop that they're towing it to have the capabilities to fix what is needed on your truck? Or are they going to have to tow it somewhere else? If you're in a rural part of the country, man, you could be down for 2 weeks before they could get parts out there. And then on top of that, do they have a mechanic who can actually service it, right? And again, you might be saying, dude, that sounds like an extreme example. And it very well could be, but this is a very real scenario that somebody has been faced with. And unfortunately, somebody will be faced with again in the future.
Right. And there's people listening to this that tell you that we've been there, and most fleet operators will tell you we've been there. So you want to get ahead of that, but you also, a lot of it also comes to is where these trucks going. Are you routing them properly where they don't end up in areas where they could have an issue? And all this data has to play together, right? Yeah. So that if you're going down a certain highway at a certain day at a time, there's no one going to be available to help you for a long time. Yeah. And a lot of that just depends on where you put them, how you route them, and what do you need for routing? I mean, you need to know where to go, in what order, to make sure you avoid traffic the most you can, to make sure you're as efficient as you can be, that you got the right load, and that you're hitting your customer as quick as you can at the appropriate time. All that takes data, and all that takes systems. So
no, absolutely. So what does that look like, man? What does a fully connected ecosystem look like here? And, and how close is that to being achieved out there in the market right now?
Well, a lot of that data we already have today, right? And usually that starts at the beginning of the day when the driver goes to their truck, they do their pre-trip inspection, right? So the pre-trip inspection goes and says, look at these items that we need to check on every single truck. If there's a failure, we take a photo, we get a different truck, we reschedule the route. And once they do that and they sign off on it, they have to know where to go, and they have to know in what order they have to visit their stops. They're in an LTL situation. They're making several stops during the day. We have to know where they're going and what order in the most efficient manner. Once we know that, we have an app, we log in, we go to our first stop. We have a camera that keeps us safe, right? That records things, that makes sure that we're going the right speed, right limit. We have an ETA of when we're supposed to be there. We have an actual when we have arrived. When we're there, we want to be there at the appropriate time, so we're not doing pickups and deliveries when your docks may be loaded or blocked, right, where you can't get to it and you're just sitting waiting for someone to get out of the way. And once we do that, we get in and out the quickest we can, and we go to the next stop, right? And that goes from stop to stop. Or if you're doing line haul, you want to arrive at the appropriate time. So all that information is there. All that information is reportable with a system like ours, right? It all plays together. And then you want to get there and get to where you're going in the quickest, most efficient way. The maintenance is a part of it. The driver safety is a part of it. The business process is a part of it. And the communication in making sure you have the right paperwork, everything electronically, it gets you there. But you got to think about it, the driver too, right? The system has to be easy to use. There's tons of overhead that can be created in getting this information. The vehicle inspection may be very complicated. It may have tons of things on there that never get looked at because it's too much, right? From a routing perspective, most drivers know how to get to where they're going. They've been doing it for years, right? So you got to look at that and give them some autonomy to make some adjustments into the system as well.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I keep preaching simplicity on this stuff at the mobile level, because most drivers don't want this over complicated app or over complicated system they have to learn, and then you got to train them, and then you end up getting bad data that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look at the entire scope of what's happening and really give the drivers just what they need, not more than that.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. My godfather, he drove back in the day as well, and then he, got back on the road here as a kind of a winter hobby, just to stay busy out there. And I mean, he said it to me. He's like, I'm like, so how was it? Like, what was the big difference out there? And he was like, it's extremely frustrating because I have to do 8 steps before I can even drive my truck. He's like, there's so many hoops to have to jump through at that time. He's like, I'm not getting compensated for that time. He's like, I understand how a lot of this and why a lot of this is a thing, but there's a lot of this stuff that's coming out there. And I think like that, you said the best piece there. We got to keep this simple for the drivers, because again, fleet managers, safety managers, they're going to be all about this stuff, right? And I look at it a lot from the broker side of things here. Brokers have a lot of great tools at their disposal, but it affects the driver, the end user at the most of it. What is it going to do to them? Is it going to make it harder for them to do their job? And again, is it going to build up resistance as a broker? Do they even want to take your freight anymore? If they got to jump through 18 steps just to take a load, the answer is probably going to be no. They might tolerate it in a down market like we're in right now, but as soon as this goes away, I guarantee you they're going to stop tolerating a lot of this stuff. And the same thing on the fleet side. Like, is this easy for the driver to use? Because ultimately, they are the ones who have to deal with this out on the road. That stress of they're running late, they hit traffic, whatever else. Is it making their lives easier or harder?
No, it's supposed to make it easier. And I can't tell you how many times we've been in situations where we'll work with customers and we look at the system that they have, right? And we're looking to essentially put in ours, and we say, we can't believe you do all this, right? And the way we achieve that is, instead of just saying, hey, here's a bunch of tech, put it out there, we actually take the time to get on routes and get in the trucks and do ride-alongs and figure out exactly what the driver's doing. And that's the key to it, right? You got to figure out exactly what makes a driver tick, what makes their life easier. And the more you interview them and the more you spend time with them, the easier it is to become a system, because we can deal with it on the back end. All the folks that, the dispatch, everyone's essentially sitting in computer screens just like you are over there yourselves. The drivers don't do that. They don't have the patience for that. They can't, they're driving.
Yeah.
So that is going to be the key differentiator in having a good solution, is working with your driver and figuring out what's happening at their level.
So, 90% of the trucks on the road are 10 truck or less operations. And, a lot of them, are in that small to mid-sized fleet category. So how can they leverage this tech, do you think, to stay competitive with those enterprise level operations, right? Because again, a lot of the larger providers out there, I don't have an insight into their operations in their day-to-day, but they have a ton of data that they are leveraging and they are using to stay competitive out there in the market to ultimately get the freight from the customers and everything else. So how does that small to mid-size fleet leverage this stuff, Rudy, so they can go out there and pack a larger punch in the market?
Best answer to that is steps. You have to take steps, and you can't do it all at once. You can't go in there. I want a system that Knight Swift has, or some of the biggest player. You have to look at, okay, look, let's automate our vehicle inspection, or let's automate just the basic bill of lading, and then as you do that, you build on it little by little. I think that most of the fleets that you mentioned, you'd be surprised how many folks out there have nothing. You do have an ELD at this point because it is required and so on, but most of them run without video, run without, any sort of camera system. They run with a lot of their bill of ladings on paper. A lot of that information is still faxed to them. So if you just look at the entire operation, automate little by little, it will not take long to get something that is competitive with the big players. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that holds people back from systems like this is they think that these systems are so expensive, it's prohibitive, right? And I think if you looked at it, probably 5-10 years ago, that was probably true,
Mhm.
But at this point, it's way easier for a company like us to deploy a solution like this, right? Which drives down the cost. It
Yeah.
drives, I mean, that's tech, right? Things do get cheaper, things do become easier. I remember when we first got into video, where we put cameras in vehicles that were monitored. Oftentimes at that time, they're a couple $1,000s a truck. You have this high monthly cost. That's fractions of what it costs today.
Mhm.
So a lot of operators still have that in mind, saying, hey, we still are out there in these numbers when they're very, very different. The other thing you got to look at is there's so many trucks I walk up to that are small operators or even independents. They have tablets, they have information, they have navigation, or because some drivers are pretty techy, so they'll get out and buy things on their own. The issue is they can't always integrate it. They can't always get the information they need on that pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just a good way to look at it and say, hey, what do we need and how do we put all the tech we have and put it together?
Yeah. And I think that, and this is coming from a small business owner's perspective here. We want to automate as much as we possibly can inside of our operation, right? Like 95% of my day as a freight broker should be automated, except for when a carrier calls me or a customer needs my attention, or if I'm out there selling, prospecting, cold calling, all of that, that is all human done. But it's also I think that there's a lot of great technology that is out there for the industry as a whole, but it's all centered towards the largest logos in the industry, right? They all have that massive price point. And you brought it up, right? Like back in the day, those cameras were a couple $1,000, high monthly cost, all of that. Yeah. And I don't think that there's necessarily a resistance to automating and deploying technology in most people's operations, but it is a price thing. And some of these companies that are out there are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. And then most businesses are like, that's more than my truck payments are. Yeah. Like how am I going to go out there and do that? And again, it's a pure numbers game at that point. So it's like, do you think that that's where the future of a lot of this intelligence is headed, Rudy, in the sense of like, it's going to become very competitive to where it's like the price, I don't want to say like the price of a cup of coffee a day, but you know what I mean? Like it's going to get down to that point where every business or people are going to say like, hey, 90% of the market is the small to mid-sized market. Why are we only going after the 10% of the trucks on the road? Why don't we go after the 90%? Let's deploy technology out there that literally every business of every size can afford and cannot afford to not have inside of their operation.
Chris, I think you brought up a lot of good points. Couple of things on that. Everybody wants the big logos. All the tech players want the big logos. Correct. That's what their investors want them to do. But I think what happens is that the smaller players have the ability to change. And that is the competitive advantage they have versus the big carriers, is that for a big carrier to do a project like this, there's a lot of people involved. It's a big team. It takes them years to deploy it, when the smaller player can have something out in 30 days, and by the time some of these bigger players put these projects out, the market may have changed on them, So between where the cost comes down for the smaller players and where it becomes more competitive in the fact that they can be more dynamic than the big guys, that can be a very, very interesting advantage that I think we'll see in the future.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I think that the smaller businesses are going to be a lot more nimble because, again, it's like, and this isn't a knock on large companies out there at all, but it takes a lot more time to make a decision in a Fortune 500 company than it does in a 5-person operation, right? The decisions are fast. And that's the thing, man. Time kills everything in the business world. The longer you drag your feet on some of this stuff, it's just going to work against you in the long run, right? Like I would rather make a decision and be wrong than not make a decision at all and then be in the exact same spot in 5 years from now. And I feel like that is another thing that kills a lot of businesses' progress is they're indecisive, right? Like they're like, oh, this is this big piece of technology. This is, we've never done it this way. Why do we need to do this? And, you brought up, again, cameras a bunch of times. The fact that, again, I don't own trucks, but when I do own trucks, we will definitely have outward facing cameras out there because I've interviewed enough insurance companies on this show. of the cost savings of their premiums alone. It's like it's a fool. You're a fool to not have these on your fleet at this point, right? And again, on the broker side of things here, you guys, I've been doing this a long time. The amount of times that I have had drivers who have had their trailers damaged by a shipper or a receiver and then have it pinned on the driver, and then they have no way to prove that it wasn't them. Again, look at that. Like, think of what it costs to replace a sidewall on a trailer. Just a small section, couple $1,000. Mm-hmm. I've seen some numbers out there from some cameras, you guys, that if that happens to you or your fleet out there one time, that pays for like 3 years of having cameras on your fleet.
Right. And with video also, sometimes you go in and your driver may get blamed for knocking a fence down when they didn't do it, or property damage that has nothing to do with them. We see this all the time. And people do get worried about that, privacy and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, in today's day and age, there's no more privacy. If you have an iPhone or an Android device, I mean, everybody knows where you are. I mean, that's just part of it today. I think with video, outward facing and even inward facing, right? Which oftentimes the driver does nothing wrong. It exonerates them. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but now they have a voice. And, we've seen that year after year. It's just the right thing to do. It's the safe thing to do.
No, I get it, right? And I understand the whole Big Brother not wanting, watching on you at any given moment. I completely understand and respect that. But it's like, again, you need to look at where nuclear verdicts are in the industry right now. And
that is all over the place nowadays.
Yeah. Trucks the drivers are the first one blamed in every situation, no matter what.
In a commercial truck, always.
Yeah. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That is exactly what, like, you're guilty until proven innocent, right? You're not innocent until proven guilty as a driver in most situations, right? You can just go through any transportation news website and look at the nuclear verdicts that are out there and the money that these companies are being sued for, and some of them losing and then bankrupting their operations at that point. You have to look at where we are today. Again, I'm not here to argue what's right or what's wrong. We need to play the hand we're dealt. And when you're a business owner, there's a lot of regulations that are passed down that you might not agree with, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure your business is compliant and you need to protect that investment, right? Because again, like, what people's lives are on the line out there on the road. You see it. I've had a bunch of crash experts on the show as well, Rudy, and some of the videos that I've seen it's insane. And I remember being a little kid riding in with my dad, dude. I remember seeing people with tarps over them on the side of the road. Yeah. Like, as a kid, I will never forget those images, right? I couldn't imagine being exposed to that on a daily basis out there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that happens out there, but you got to protect your business at the end of the day. And with where technology is, with what is at your disposal, it's only going to make you better. It's only going to make you more competitive. You're going to be out there. You're going to run a smarter operation. And again, you need a way to itemize all of this data, put it in some reports to help you make those best decisions out there to keep your business moving.
Yeah. And I think where it's coming to now is, we usually start with a video system that looks outward and inside. A lot of companies tend to turn that on if they choose to, but now more and more fleets are asking us, they want to look out the sides, they want to look out the rear of the vehicle. Mm-hmm. We're doing all sorts of wireless video where they can see out the back of the trailer, and oftentimes even cargo in specific situations. Now we have all sorts of technology that'll tell you, the volume of how full a trailer is, and that all comes into using that information into running an efficient operation, running a safe operation, keeping track and good view of your property. Mm-hmm. But also using the business piece of it too. Is your trailer full enough? Could you load it more? Are you loading it in the proper order? All that has to play together, and we're making it easier for fleets to see what they're doing, see how things look, and those fleets are the ones that are well run.
No, I couldn't agree more, Rudy. Rudy, I appreciate it, man. I could talk about business intelligence all day long and how we can make smarter decisions out there. And it fits for a guy like me. I went to public school, right? You guys, I need all the help I can get with making the most intelligent decisions in business. But Rudy, how does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more about what you have going on?
Yeah, so we can always be reached on our website, which is velocitor.com. Check us out there, schedule a demo with us, take a look at what we do. We'd love to show it to you, but most importantly, talk about your operation, talk about the challenges that your company may be facing. And you know, I guarantee you we'll have some sort of a solution for it in anything when it comes to bill of ladings, when it comes to DVIR, ELD, video systems, basically any of it or all of it.
Perfect. Rudy, I appreciate it. If you guys can't find Rudy or Velociter out there on social media or anything like that, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that will be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. If you're feeling really ambitious, which you should be, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, and